See you on the flip side. This happened to me about 2 years ago, around late December of 2020. I was 19 at the time. My girlfriend and I were at my grandparents' place having a couple drinks out in the garage until it got too cold to stay out there. It was one of the coldest nights of the year, and there was a bad blizzard that night. We live in Canada, by the way. We both went back to the house around 2 a.m. She went into my room, and I went out in the kitchen to cook something for us in the oven. I was on my phone, standing alone out in the kitchen, when my grandma and my girlfriend both walked out into the kitchen together. It was a tad strange because my grandma is never up that late, and it was even stranger that my girlfriend came out at the same time. The first thing my grandma said to me is, "Don't go back out there tonight. On a night like this, people lose their lives." I was a little bit freaked out because I was just about to head back out to the garage to grab something. I never told anyone I was going back out, though. My girlfriend and my grandma just stood there, staring at me with the weirdest expressions I've ever seen, with very unnatural smiles that didn't seem right. My girlfriend then walked over and gave me a hug. When I grabbed her, she was ice cold. I commented on this, and when I mentioned how cold she was, her expression changed. Her smile faded, and she looked up at me with really serious, sad eyes, and didn't say anything. There was something else I noticed, too. She smelled like a campfire, an earthy, smoky smell. There wasn't an explanation for this, and she didn't smell like that earlier. I swear at that moment I got chills all over. There was something so off about it all, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My girlfriend whispered in my ear, "Don't go outside tonight." She walked back over to my grandma and stood beside her with her head down and a serious expression while my grandma was still staring at me with that weird fake smile. It was so bizarre I just stood there, speechless. The wind began to literally howl outside. My grandma turned and looked at my girlfriend. "Don't mess with black magic," she said. "Nothing good is going to come from it." My girlfriend didn't say anything. She continued looking down. I stood there, confused. Then my girlfriend looked up at me. "We have to go now." They both started walking away. My grandma looked back at me for a second. "See you on the flip side," she said with that weird smile. I got another chill through my whole body when she said that. They turned the corner and left the kitchen. I stood there for a while. I didn't know what to make of it all. I decided not to go out to the garage. I'd go out and get my stuff the next morning. I stayed out in the kitchen for another 10 minutes until the food was done, then went back into my room with it. My girlfriend was in bed. She got up and we put on a movie. I guess I was quiet because she asked me, "What's wrong?" I told her everything was okay. It took me 10 minutes to say something about it, because, to be honest, I was still frightened. I turned to her and asked why she and my grandma came out to the kitchen. The second I said that, my nose started bleeding. I ran to the bathroom and got something to stop the bleeding, then came back and told my girlfriend everything. As you can guess, she said she never went out, and she swore on someone's life she was in the room the whole time. She also didn't smell like smoke anymore. We went and woke up my grandma right after, and she said the same thing. She actually thought we were trying to mess with her, and she didn't believe us. We were so freaked out after this we had trouble sleeping for the rest of the night. The part that really messed my girlfriend up was when I told her about how cold she felt and how she smelled like smoke. The only explanation we could come up with was that maybe, if I went outside that night, something bad would have happened. Maybe the spirits of dead relatives watching over me came to me in that form so I wouldn't be scared and they could get the message through. The last part of it that made sense was the part about black magic. My girlfriend just got a book about witchcraft from her friend the week prior. She never opened it again after this. She took what was said as a warning. I've been thinking about writing this story down for the past 2 years, and she encouraged me to finally do it because maybe someone else out there has had an experience like this. To this day, I still get chills thinking about it, especially the last thing that was said. See you on the flip side. A Vanishing Road. This is going to sound like a crock, but I swear up and down that it really happened. About 4 years ago, I lived in this fairly small fly-speck of a town. At the time, I had lived there for about 12 years, so I knew my way around. Our house was about 1.5 miles away from the nearest neighborhood. Our mom intentionally picked that house due to the lack of neighbors. It was tucked away on a back road with the woods surrounding it. Every now and again I liked to take walks with my little brother, who at the time was around 13. One day we decided to do just that. We headed up the road and decided to try to find a new path or a new clearing that we hadn't discovered yet. When we noticed something a little shocking. Just off the road that led almost directly to the neighborhood, there was a brand new paved road. Every road in that part of town was a gravel road. So seeing an out-of-place paved road was pretty unusual. We stared at it for a while and came to the conclusion that it must have been made within the last few days, due to the sure but slow growth of the town. We decided to explore it for a bit. I remember as soon as we set foot on the road, the air became noticeably colder. The road itself was black pavement, but without dividing lines. It was surrounded by some thick, red trees that resembled redwoods, but they were too short and non-native to our state, southern Arkansas. We walked on the road for about 3 miles until we decided to head back due to it getting dark. When we got off the road, we felt the temperature go back up. My brother and I agreed to explore it the next day. At roughly noon the following day, we set back out to explore this place, only to find that the entire road was now missing. When I say missing, I mean the trees that were cleared to make it had apparently grown back, with no sign of the redwood-like trees. We even began to explore the woods once more, but only to find no sign that it ever existed. When we asked our parents about it, they said they knew nothing about any new road work being done near us. Has anyone ever experienced anything like this? I think I'm in a different timeline. About a year ago, during the summer of the pandemic, I was working at Pizza Hut and made a good friend. We would hang out after the closing shift and drive around. I was living in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, so there's really nothing to do but drive around. Randonauting was pretty popular at the time, an app that gave you random energy points with coordinates, and we decided to try it out. We were out near some cornfields and missed our destination. I was looking ahead on the map and saw a U-shaped road with a 3-exit roundabout, the second exit leading away from the main road. I tell my friend to turn into the road. We come up to the roundabout and I tell them to take the first exit. We exit the roundabout, and this is where things get weird. We were driving back into the same roundabout. I freeze, and my friend is asking me which exit to take. My gut tells me to take the second, this time, so I tell them to take the second exit. This leads us to the main road. I'm incredibly confused looking at the map, which still has only one roundabout on it. I said something about it being weird that there were two roundabouts when the map only shows one. My friend has no recollection of the first. They still have no recollection of it to this day, but I remember it so vividly. The day after I tried to find the road we took to make a U-turn by looking at the map, and I'm completely unable to find it. It doesn't exist anymore. There's not even a roundabout in the area we were driving in. Ever since then, things have been slightly off. The house across the street from my house has turned 90 degrees from how I remember it. The main road to the shopping center is shorter. I know this because I time my drives. It used to be 13 minutes, and now it only takes 8. I notice a lot of other little things like that. I think I was transported to another timeline or universe. Did I visit a parallel universe? My cousin, my aunt, and I were all outside on the front porch playing. We were all the same age, around 4 or 5. Two teenagers approached us and asked if we wanted to see a castle. I knew this was bad news, but my cousin had to go see it, so we both agreed to follow. We went into the woods and walked along a trail for what felt like an eternity. Probably 20 minutes or so realistically. We arrived to find a beautiful, gleaming, majestic castle in the distance. I'm talking something you would see in the movies. This place was made of heaven. It literally shined. As if we entered a city of wealth, we excitedly look at each other and sprint home to tell our parents. The teenagers stayed behind, never chased or followed. Our run back was instantaneous, as if it took a few seconds compared to the walk there. We go and tell my mom, and obviously she's freaked out and tells us no more playing outside for the day. Here's the thing. My mom was so incredibly strict on us that she would have never let us out of her sight for longer than a minute. The door to the front porch was open, so there's no way two random teenagers could have actually taken us into the woods, much less anywhere without one of our parents seeing. My mom and my aunt were the two adults home at the time. I've spoken to my mom about this multiple times. There's no church or anything nearby that we could have mistaken for a castle. I've even looked as an adult. No luck. All three of us remembered this phenomenon. My cousin and I have spoken about this every time we've seen each other, ages 6, 8, 12, 15, etc. We all remember, always have. I know some will chalk this up to a kid's imagination, but I swear to you that this was real. 3313. A divergence in time. On June 28th, 2014, my morning was the same as any other day. I woke up, brushed my teeth, ate breakfast, got in the car to go to work. I was confused, however, after I switched on the radio. I usually listen to music on my morning drive, but the station was playing some sort of news talk show. The host was exuberantly referencing our victory in the Great War as he praised troops and the armed forces. At first, I thought that he was discussing the recent end to the war in Afghanistan, as our combat troops were withdrawing at the time. I was confused, however, when he started discussing the conclusion of our victory in Italy and how the Second Great Depression will come to an end as our victory is secured. I assumed this was some strange sci-fi or fictional program and largely forgot about it. At my lunch break, I overheard my office coworkers talking about our victory in Italy and how unity will be preserved. For some reason, they kept mentioning the numbers 3313. I asked them what the hell they were discussing, but they told me that my ignorance was disrespectful towards the troops. It was then that I noticed that one of my fellow co-workers, Sam, was not present. When I asked if he was sick, nobody knew who he was. Strange. On the way home, I took a different route, through the city, to avoid traffic. Numerous victory banners were hanging on the walls of buildings, showing images of American Marines braving some foreign beach. I couldn't help noticing that the city looked far poorer than I remembered, and many buildings were abandoned and crumbling. In my apartment, I turned on CNN just to understand what was going on. The host discussed how Italian logistical targets were decisively defeated, and that the insurgency in Greece and Ireland is drawing down with every passing day. The experience was so unexpected, so bizarre, that I can still remember the words of the newscasters vividly. I decided to peruse Wikipedia as I knew that the site would at least give an overview of the war. As I read the page, I grew increasingly confused and bewildered. The Greek debt crisis had exponentially increased in intensity. There was a string of defaults across Europe, and the Eurozone collapsed into civil war. The United States was in a worse depression than the 1930s as global finance collapsed, and the war bankrupted our economy further. Greece and Ireland were occupied by coalition forces, and there was a violent nationalist insurgency in both countries. I decided that I must be dreaming. To test whether this was really happening, I took screenshots of the pages on my phone. Sure enough, after I woke up, the pictures were still there. After this experience, I examined the possibility of parallel universes. According to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, each event leads to a divergence of timelines, with a different outcome corresponding to a different reality. It seems that somehow, somewhere, our universe diverged and a different, darker timeline formed. Highway to Nowhere. All right, my best friend and I had made a trip to Oklahoma, about an hour and a half away. We've made this trip maybe 5 times before, and every time we take the same route. It's a straight shot of nothing but open highway for about 70 miles. Imagine our surprise when, on our way back, there were towns and roadwork and restaurants, like every 10 miles, hardly any open highway at all. We were freaking out thinking we had turned the wrong way, but I pulled up my GPS and we were on the right track. Same highway, but now littered with businesses and houses. When Kyle disappeared. One night my friends, E, C, W, and K, Kyle, were at the gas station. Kyle got out of the car and went inside to go buy stuff. About 7 minutes later, E and I are sitting in the front seat, and CK walk out and come right up to the car, but as soon as he's about to open the door, he disappears into thin air. We had a clear view of the store entrance and everything else around us. I didn't think that E saw the same thing I did until E turned to me, confused, asking, "Did Kyle just come out of the store, or am I crazy?" I replied, "You're not crazy. I saw him come out too." My other two friends, W and C, said they weren't even paying attention. About 5 minutes later, Kyle comes out of the store. As soon as he gets into the car, I ask if he had come out of the store since the first time he came in, and he said no, and that he was in there the entire time. Usually, when this sort of thing happens, I'm the only one who sees it. But this time my friend confirmed what I saw, and I've been questioning reality ever since.